Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, and today we're starting an interesting video. So a little while ago I made a video talking about all the books I have to read for one of my classes, and I talked about wanting to do vlogs for each of these books that I have to read, and we started the first one, and that is Daughters of Erietown by Connie Schultz. Technically I'm supposed to be here, but I'm like 100 pages behind, and that's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm really enjoying it so far. There have been so many places I dog-eared just because I didn't want to tab. So I'm obviously enjoying this book already. Like, I was crying before I hit the 45-page mark at things that had happened in here that related to my life and that just teared me up and had me like full out crying. One specific quote, I don't know that this necessarily had me crying, but it was a quote I wanted to mention, is, "You have a big, bold adventure waiting for you, dear one. Don't be late for your own life." And that was Ellie's aunt talking to her about what to do with her future because she's not quite sure. I'm gonna wait until I get a little further in to really like talk about what this is about, but I wanted to start this and kind of pop on and be like, I really enjoy it. I'm really, really enjoying it. So yeah, this is The Daughters of Erietown by Connie Schultz vlog. It's been a while. So as far as reading The Daughters of Erietown for school goes, I've gotten a little bit farther. I am now on page 241. It's a little over halfway through the book, and I think I need to sit down, talk about, and digest things. So this is a generational story, and I'm gonna outline like the basic premise, or multiple premise. Essentially the storylines and like way we're going, because I feel like if you just hop right into it, it's a little confusing, and I do 100% like recommend this book. So I think it should like blow up. It is a very good book. I know my teacher was like, there are some things that I don't like in here, and I was like, I have a very deep emotional connection to this book already, which is a little bit of a problem, but it's fine. So what's happening? As soon as you open the book, okay, the first like chapter is a prologue set in 1975, and it is Samantha McGintley going to college, and you kind of get glimpses into her relationship with her mother and with her father, and you hear a little bit of stories that are going to come up later in the book. You see her dad telling her to, instead of going to, I believe it was Smith, I'm not really sure. Yeah, so Smith College, and her dad wants her to go to Kent State, and you also find out that her best friend became pregnant and had a child before she was supposed to go to college, because they were going to go to college together, and then they didn't because she got pregnant. And like, that feels like it's a little bit of it's gonna be important in my brain. But you hear these things, and then you jump back in time to 1947, where you are then faced with Ellie's grandparents talking about her, because her father is like abandoning her. Her father's getting another divorce and like abandoning her and giving her to her grandparents to raise. And then she talks about that with her husband. Her husband doesn't like it. And then you jump to 1957. So already in the first 20 pages, there's 3 different time jumps. You start from like future-ish, and then jump back, and then jump a little more forward. So I'm trying to picture this. If it's like a timeline, and this is probably going to be backwards. Let me think. If this is, what was this, like 1947, and this is 1975. You start here, then you jump here, and then you go here to 1956. where you're then faced with like teenage high school Ellie and Brick, which are like the main two characters. They are the main generation in this story. And for a while you follow them, you learn about their lives, where Brick's father is abusive and Ellie's grandparents, she's trying to like live up to everything, despite having a terrible father that left her with them, and she loves them, but it's a complicated relationship. And then you like go through Ellie finding out that she's pregnant and telling Brick, and it really goes on from there. And I'm not spoiling anything, that's what the description on the inside flap is about. And where I'm only halfway through, a lot has happened. It's spoilery. But essentially now we're introduced to another character, and I don't know what year this is. This is after they've been married for a while. Sam is around 6, I believe, so it's 6 or 7 years later. And there's this girl, Rosemary, that came from another part, because this is all set in Erietown, Ohio, or Clayton Valley. One of the two. It's set in like close to Lake Erie, Ohio, and she came from, I'd have to say like Cincinnati area. I'm not 100% sure, because it's like a fictional place. But now she has seen Brick's picture in the newspaper and is like crushing on him, which is bad because he's married. So as far as like how I'm really feeling about the book, it's really emotional. It has already packed an emotional punch for me so hard. You can kind of see I've dog-eared a lot of pages because there's just so much that I like, and I've been writing it, and I know that's like not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like it. With this book, it just works well. You can see I have like an underline, and most recently I have a big note. Oh, literally this one is about they were talking about you were looking for the father that left you, and she said, that's sick, that makes me make it sound like I want to marry my father. And she said, oh sweetie, we all do, why do you think we're all so fucked up? And I literally just wrote, Alexa, play Daddy Issues by The Neighborhood. I'm funny, if you didn't know already. I think there are a lot of really good quotes in this, and if I'm being entirely honest, there's a lot of like cliches. Is that the right word? Stereotypes. Most of the pairings in this book have the female that is kind of like a pushover, is docile and like to any end loves her husband, and that's kind of debatable. And then you have the guy that's like, what would be the right word to describe it? Like crotchety or downright abusive, which obviously is a situation you have a lot because there's so many situations like that, and because it's reflected so much in literature. I just want to see a strong independent woman, like entirely, and I think we're starting to. I think we're gonna start to question things. Certain characters are, and I'm excited for that. The time difference, or like when it's set, makes it really interesting because we just talked about Kennedy being shot. I'm pretty sure it was Kennedy. I don't know. I frankly don't care. But the thing about Ellie's pregnancy that hits so hard is that she had plans to go to college and be a nurse. And I know Brick had plans too, I just frankly don't really care. but she was gonna go be a nurse and now she can't, and Brick like had a scholarship for fucking basketball or some shit. I don't really care. I don't really know. I think, okay, this is gonna sound like a weird comparison, but the beginning of this and like the most into it kind of feels like 17 again. Because I just recently rewatched that movie, and it's got a similar vibe going. So yeah, honestly I don't really know that I have a lot more to say. We haven't talked about it in class at all because we had our first in-person class this week, and it was just like an introduction. Here's a fun one, like basically a full page of notes in here. I feel like some of these characters you can get easily frustrated by, at least I can. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes you want to get frustrated by characters to make them do something else. You want them to be like, you just want to be like, do this instead. Push this way instead of going this way. You're on the wrong path. But we'll see how this frustration plays out, because I feel like a lot of it is set up by the author where you're supposed to feel frustrated and then it resolves itself. At least I'm hoping so. But yeah, but that's how I'm feeling about The Daughters of Erietown. I'll let you know when I get some more reading done. I have class tomorrow. Maybe we'll discuss some things worth talking about. I don't mean that as aggressive as it sounded, but maybe we'll discuss some things worth me bringing up here that I find interesting. But I'm really enjoying the story for now, and yeah. I just finished The Daughters of Erietown by Connie Schultz. There's nothing great to add to this. I just wanted to show that it garnered emotion in me. I'm crying right now, so that's fun. But yeah. So as I mentioned last night, I finished The Daughters of Erietown by Connie Schultz. I had some time to process it. I went to class today, we talked about it, and I think I'm gonna end up giving it 3 stars. That's obviously lower than I initially thought I would enjoy it. There are just some things as chronicled in my notebook and in my notes within the story. One of the first things I wrote down is that Brick in this book is bigoted against different groups. He's sexist, and he's shown to also be a racist in this story. And I understand that with the infliction of the time, it's like has to be like you're supposed to, I shouldn't say supposed to, like people were. But I feel like there were other ways to make him a bad character, a bad person, without leaning on those. And now I watched an interview with her where she talks about that it was her own experience, and it changes a lot of things, as stupid as that sounds. That she is very much like Sam in this book, that the author is very much like Sam and reflects a lot of her experiences on the character Sam. But I still feel like this is something that I didn't enjoy. That we added this layer to Brick that didn't need to be here because he was already bad to begin with. Like, he's not a character that you can really like in this book, and to then add that on top, I didn't really care. Just a quick note to clarify, in this very bad resolution, it's not that I didn't care, it's that I didn't care for it. The point that I was trying to make is that Brick is not a character that you can really sympathize with, whether or not he is sexist and a racist. So while I understand that is a reflection of that time and a reflection of Connie Schultz's own experiences in this time, I felt like the intention was that there wasn't enough things showing that Brick was bad, that this had to be added in. And I felt as though it didn't need to be added in to paint Brick as like a villain.
so to speak.
I did not like the ending of the story. It's just a personal critique. A mild spoiler right here, like a main character death happens in the last 20 pages of the book. I don't always think a main character death in like that, like very close to the end of the story is a cop-out, but I've seen it used as a cop-out and a lazy answer so many times that it's frustrating to see it now. I felt like there was so much more that could happen with this particular character and their relationships rather than this character just keeling over and dying one day. And I do understand that it's supposed to lead into the rest of someone else's story, but I don't feel like it needed to happen. I feel like it would be so much more nuanced and like well structured had this character not died and had you just continued with the story. I finished this last night. I have like had time to process it. I'm still walking away from the story feeling like there's something missing from it. This doesn't feel complete to me for some reason. I'm not really sure. I feel like where we're supposed to have things tied up at the end, there wasn't a lot of like tied up endings. You're kind of left wondering how some things end, and I didn't like it. I didn't like that. I'm not a huge fan of open-ended endings. Just because I don't really think beyond what canonically happens in a story. So to kind of be told, well, it's up to your interpretation, what's going to happen next, is frustrating. Because frankly, I don't care enough to, spend days pondering what the characters did after the last page of this story. I'd like to just have it spelled out for me. The way this book is written, I shouldn't say written, the way it's like constructed, where you start out with Brick and Ellie as teenagers in love and progress through their relationship kind of slowly, and you're kind of there for a lot of it, and then it starts to get jumbled and like skip like a CD skipping. You miss years. I don't feel like some of those were needed years. I feel like it was okay for the skips. Where the plot really took a turn from me, where I felt like this is where it just stopped. It didn't have a lot of momentum going forward. After you switch from, there's a plot line with a character called Rosemary, and as soon as she's out of the picture and we switch to Sam's like college experience and beyond, it's even more jumbled, and I feel like it's less of a connected flowing story as it was in the beginning, and more of like a stop and start of little stories, multiple, that happened in their lives to kind of tie up the ending of this book. I liked like how it started and how it went through their relationship, but after everything was said and done in this book, I resented at least something about every character just about in this book. And that definitely speaks to the author's writing style of writing very realistic characters that you can see even in my world, even in my life. I can see them portrayed. Like, this is a story I know. This is a story that I have heard before in different words from different people's mouths and with slightly different endings, but it just, all the characters in this, like I said, are ones that I've seen in life, and while they reacted slightly differently in the book than they have in my real life, it's a different that I didn't really connect with. Which is fine. This isn't like I have to connect with it or it's not a good story. But because there was so much of this story that I connected with than to have kind of a drop off where it was like, not anymore. It was a little like surprising and jarring. And then, like I said, just resentment towards characters, which isn't often a feeling I have while reading. So that's a very interesting response to what's happening in this story, is for me to feel resentment. So I'm interested to see how my feelings with this book hold up over time. But that's definitely a new feeling I've felt while reading. There were characters in this that I really liked how their arcs started, and then they just kind of dropped off, and like I didn't like them like at all. There's a very certain character I'm talking about, but I don't want to get into it. The thing that this story proved to me the most that I feel like needs to be said, and there are not enough things that say it, are that this story proves that staying together for the kids can potentially cause just as much harm to your kids as breaking up would. I said it. I don't know how many people have ever thought about this or like shared this sentiment, but staying together because you have kids and, you know, continuing to harbor your feelings of resentment towards your partner and like the actions that they've done and the guilt and everything and the way people act within the situations can cause just as much harm as the divorce. Like, plain and simple. In like there's just, so I understand that pain is relative very easily, but don't ever use, well, your parents are still together, as something to say like, oh, well, it can't be all bad, your parents are still together. And this book like proves why you can't say that, because Sam, the daughter, still holds different opinions and feelings on love and relationships and just about life in general because of how her parents' story played out. I think the biggest thing in this is that where Ellie got pregnant at a young age and kept Brick and herself from being able to do things, but Brick only thought about himself throughout this entire novel, so it kept Brick from doing things. And he harbored that resentment towards her even when he was like, no, this is fine. You can tell he continued to resent her for it. And they had to move quickly in getting married, and it was shotgun wedding, like everything was quick. So then you see reflected Sam being like, let's take this slow, even when it's obvious that they can move forward with their relationship. She's like, we gotta take it slow. We gotta take it slow. And I don't know, I feel bad in that situation, but I feel bad for her that she had to deal with something like this. I feel like she would have been just as, like, I don't know about Riley because we aren't told a lot about Riley, like, at all, but I feel like Sam, I don't know, I feel like things would have been different had their parents, had Ellie and Brick ended up divorcing, but I think the damage had already been done at that point, so I don't know. But I think I already talked about this, but like my main gripe and like the main reasons I'm giving it 3 stars, because I did enjoy the story, or like my feelings toward the characters definitely went downhill over my reading experience, and I think it's because they're portrayed as real humans, and you know, you're seeing them get older and make decisions that like you don't think you'd make, but you never know what you would do in those situations, but you feel like it was the wrong decision, you wanted things to go differently. There's the resentment towards the characters, the way the book like skips through years. Like at one point there's just a skip from the early 70s to the late 80s. Maybe it's the mid 70s to the late 80s. It's at least a 10-year skip. Okay, there's another 5-year skip. This is 1989, and then starting here is 1994. I don't know that there's another skip. I think like after that it just kind of moves on and finishes, but before the 1989 skip. Yeah, it's a 10-year. So it goes from here being 1979 to here being 1989. And that skip was, I feel like the way it ended and then picked up completely different is also a little jarring. So I would go into it, if you are going to read it after this, with that in mind, that like there are skips that don't fill in the blanks and it's a little like jolting in each skip, but I do think it's worth the read. I mean, the main focus of this story is meant to be on how female characters have been portrayed through the ages, which I liked, and working class families, which I kind of got, but I feel like that could have been explored a little bit more if that was the true reason behind the novel. All my opinions, but overall I did really enjoy it, and I don't regret reading it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I just think that Connie Schultz is an author, as this is a debut novel. She's only written nonfiction in the past, and she has been in journalism previously, so she has a history of writing, but this is her first piece of fictionalized, like large piece of fictionalized work. And I feel like her way to craft a story as a novelist has a little bit of work to be tweaked, but her stories are interesting, and the stories she tells have merit to them and make you want to read them. So I think she's going to go uphill as a fiction writer, and I hope that she continues to have like really interesting stories that catch your eye, make you want to read them. And I do hope that she improves as a fiction writer, because I think she could be a really, really good fiction writer as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on The Daughters of Erietown. Let me know down in the comments below if you've ever read this novel, what you think of this. Are you excited to see my next school reading vlog? And always make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you sometime for a new one. Bye!